Should we start?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So welcome everyone to the Agile 11 Remote Ready webinar series. I'm Eduardo Nofuentes. I'm the founder of the Agile 11. With me, I've got right now Martin Scholl. Martin is going to be sort of the thread through these 5 days, helping us with this series. I've got Beatriz Afonso on my screen as well. Say hi, Bea. Bea is going to be trying to answer as many questions and chat as we can. And I also have Lisa Wood on the screen. And Lisa is going to be the coach that is actually going to facilitate the first one today. So we live unprecedented times, as I think we all know. And last Thursday, after one of our team members got sick from a trip overseas, coming back from a trip overseas, and seeing what was happening in Spain and Italy, some of you know I'm from Spain, we decided ourselves that we were going to go remote. You know, the Agile 11 decided we need to take a step. So last Thursday, we decided to go remote. We got in the front foot with all our clients. We called our clients. We said, we're going to help you move remote because this is coming. We're going to help move your projects, your teams, your organizations virtually. We also got together and said, what else can we do? This is crazy. What else can we do? And this idea of these webinar series came up. So the team said, what about we do a series of free webinars for everyone that wants to learn how to work remotely, how to keep working through these times. We thought that it was a great idea to fight all the uncertainty that we're living through education and also bring the community together. You know, the Agile 11 has been known by bringing everyone together. We're not claiming we've got all the answers, and I love there's people, that know how to do this very well as well on the webinar. So please jump in and help. Let's help each other. I mentioned that last Thursday we decided to go remote. And it's something that is not new for us. The Agile 11 has been a company running for 5 years, and we've always been a remote-first organization. We got an office last year, about 12 months ago, that we very rarely use. So we've used to work this way. We used to work remotely, virtually. So we've learned a thing or two about what we're facing at the moment. We also work with many organizations to help them move remote. One of our first clients was a company from Canada called Shopify, and they've done this remote first at scale with over 90% of the workforce working from home. So all these might be in a strange way an opportunity, an opportunity for people and organizations to find a better way of working, to change the way we think about work. And I think it's not just up to us, but for the whole community to help each other through these times. Putting this series together has been very difficult, as you can imagine, because we don't know who is on the other side of the video right now. We don't know your expertise. You don't know if you've never done this or if you are an expert. So we're trying to cater for as many people as possible, but bear with us if this is too low or too high. We're always here. You can contact us after these webinars. You can ask us questions. We're not doing this for in any way for profiting. We're doing this to giving back to the community. I said before, the team got together last Thursday to put this together. It's Thursday today. So in 5 business days, we've promoted, we've put together, and we're going to deliver a series of webinars about working remotely. We haven't seen each other in the same room since then. So if we can do that, your teams can also do that. So hopefully you get the most out of these 5 days that we put together for you. Thank you very much all for attending. I'm going to pass it to Martin.
Thanks, Eduardo. So I'm Martin, and I'll host a series of 5 webinars for us all, so helping you get to remote ready as we transition through these uncertain times. As Eduardo said, we're really experienced in remote working and hope that we can help you with our experiences. However, the webinar thing is new to us, so bear with us as we're trying to get things to work, and we saw the poll not working for everybody this morning. But a couple of things that you have on your screen, you've got Q&A down the bottom. So if you have a question, please type it in, and as we go through, we'll call those questions out and answer them as we can. And we have a chat function down the bottom as well. So there's 2 options in the chat. One is that you can write to the panelists, and that's the 4 of us. or the other is you can choose to write to all panelists and attendees, and that means that you can share your comment with everybody that's on the webinar right now. We are recording the webinar, so we'll make this available afterwards for yourselves and for those who couldn't join us. And we'll also share the slides with you that we have today, which are going to come up now. So our purpose is making work better for everybody, and this is something that we think that we can do to help make work better for everyone, regardless of where you are. What we want to do is share the faces of our amazing team that pulled this together over the last few days. Excuse me. This is our amazing team, and as Eduardo said, it's been a big job to pull this together, and there's been a lot of effort that's gone into it from everybody in our team, so thank you to all of them. I also have a slide showing you our clients. We just wanted to give you a quick idea of the type of clients we work with across all different industries, across the country, some international in there as well, a whole range in there with different teams and different organisations. So you've got an idea of the kind of teams and organisations we work with. So what does this webinar series look like? We've got 5 webinars. Today is obviously about tools and techniques. So this is when Lisa will share with us how to get you started at home with some tools that we use and our experiences with those. Tomorrow, Kaio will lead the conversation about keeping the work moving, and this is really about how we collaborate around the work remotely. On Monday, Bea will share the culture and values piece with us. This is how we keep those things alive in a new context. Culture is the way things are done around here, and our here is changed. So how do we keep that going? And we've actually got a bonus on Monday. So following the culture and values session, Cassandra Goodwin, who's part of Thrive Global, she's going to join us for an extended webinar talking about nourishing your wellbeing. On Tuesday, we're really pleased to have Richard Harmer join us, as well as Joe. Richard's really experienced in organisational and developmental psychology, and that staying connected while we're looking at each other through a screen is a bit different. So how do we stay connected with each other whilst we're not actually physically in the room together? And finally, on Wednesday, Eduardo, our fearless leader, is going to talk to us about leading virtually. So leading with trust and helping teams remain confident during this time as well. Now I'm going to hand over to Lisa to get us started on the tools and techniques. And Lisa's on mute.
Thank you, Martine. Talking to myself there. These are all the tricks and tips you learn as you're using these tools. So thank you. I'm Lisa Wood, and it's a real pleasure to be here today with everybody. Obviously, the topic today, as we've talked about, is tools and techniques, something I'm really passionate about, actually. But we're not here today as tools experts, as Eduardo sort of pointed out. We don't propose to be experts, but we have worked remotely for some time, so that certainly has given us a lot of experience, and we'd love to share that with you today. We know this is new for a lot of you out there, so we hope that some of our experiences and the way we've been working will help you get up and running remotely as quickly as possible. We also just want to acknowledge that, you know, every organisation has a slightly different context as far as some tools you might already be using. If you're not using tools, these are the ones we're going to recommend you do use because they work. But if you are using other tool sets, we're going to just touch on that at the very end of some tools that might also serve the same purpose for you. There's quite a bit to get through. I hope I don't talk too fast. I'm learning how to do this myself as we go. So hopefully my teenies will keep me in check on that front. And just with time as well, we'll try and get through as much as we can in the time we have together. So let's kick into it. And the first thing we wanted to do is just give you a bit of an overview of all the tools we do currently use. So there's 6 essential tools we use to work remotely together. A couple of them are doubled up here, that's why it looks like there's a few more. But the reason and the purpose for this session around tools is actually more around what they enable for us as far as working remotely. So in the top left box, keeping connected is absolutely critical. If you're new to working remotely, it feels very different being at home than it does being in an office. So keeping connected is a really key part of working remotely. Then you'll need to understand how to visualise and track your work. Obviously, we're all here to work and achieve our business outcomes. So being able to visualize and track your work is really important. And the other thing is, bottom left, is how do we then create documentation and have it somewhere that we can all collaborate on and store it safely? And finally, how do we share all that work? If we created files, how do we share it? So let's kick into, I'm going to talk to all of these tools for you, except in the top right, you'll see Nutshell, which is our customer relationship management tool. That's a little bit more, serves a purpose for us, but it might not serve a general purpose for everyone, so we won't talk to that one today. Okay, so keeping connected, absolutely number one when you're working remotely. We use a tool called Slack, and we are in Slack all day, every day. So this is really where all our communication happens. And how we organise our conversations is through channels and direct messaging. So I've got a little snapshot there for you to see. And in the green panel, you'll see all our channels and some direct messages down the bottom. So the channels, you can organise your channels by topics or by teams, depending on how big your organisation is. You can work that out. And it just groups the conversations to make sense around what you want to talk about in that channel. But you can also just direct message people. So if you just want to have a chat, a little bit more ad hoc, just ping somebody with a direct message. It can just be one person, it could be to 10 people, doesn't matter. But they're a little bit more of ad hoc conversations that don't require an actual channel to be created. Some of the features we've just highlighted on this particular screenshot are we tag people. So when you're trying to communicate online, sometimes there's a lot going on in this in the channels, and I'm sure my workmates will agree. So all those channels would highlight when they are active. Somebody's put something in them, but if you need to look at one, there'll be a little red number pop up next to it. So you tag people with a little @ symbol. You'll see @Joe's been tagged in there. So he'll know that he needs to jump into that channel. Someone is trying to get hold of him or tell him something. So a nice, easy way to sort of manage all the conversation that's going on. We also share a lot of links in Slack. So it's a nice way to quickly get people to be able to look at other documentation quite simply. One of the other key features is threading. So if you look to the bottom of that sort of conversation going on in that screenshot, there are 11 replies to one of the comments that were posted. So this helps keep conversations contained. So that's a really key tip we're going to share with you, because if somebody adds a question and then the answer doesn't come till like 6, 7, 8 lines down, it's really hard to keep track of that conversation. So threading it's easy to forget to use it, but when you use it, it works really, really well. The other thing I want to point out here is emojis. We're all human beings, and sometimes when you're chatting, it's hard to get a sense of people's emotions and feelings, or a bit more character to the conversation. So emojis might seem simple, but they are really, really effective. So I recommend you use those. We also share a lot of pictures, images, work really effectively. So if you've got anything you want to share as an image, as a team, sometimes we share things we've done together just as a nice reflection. And here's a couple of shots of some team events that we did recently. But probably the key thing we'd like to point out about how we use Slack, especially because working remotely, it's about that connection and keeping track of what everyone's doing. It's really hard when you're working from home. So we have a little tip here is we have a daily stand-up and we have a daily wrap-up. So this is our daily stand-up chat. And every morning when you're ready, we jump in and individually we just post what we're doing for the day. So this happens asynchronously, so we're not all doing it at the same time. But when we start our day, we jump in, tell the team what we're up to, maybe how we're feeling, using emojis quite a bit in this one, and then everyone knows what everyone else is doing. We do the same thing at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, this is about reconnecting. How's your day been? What did you actually get up to? What happened? It's also a great place to share some of our successes, our learnings, our failings with each other as a team. A nice example of that in this one is a couple of our team mates were doing some training, and they had a really great first day and they wanted to share that with everyone. So that works really effectively.
You can see we like each other.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of love hearts going on quite a bit, but it is really nice. And because we use these tools all the time, you know, we've learned to really use them effectively from a connection point of view. So photos, emojis get used a lot. Do we have any questions at the moment, or I'll carry on otherwise?
Keep going, Lisa, but if people do have questions, please pop them in the Q&A section down the bottom. Feel free to type in any questions that you have as we go through.
Excellent. So just a couple of tips at the end on every tool. We'll just give you a couple of tips. Keep it conversational. This is a pretty informal way of communicating, a bit like if you're talking in an office with somebody. So keep the conversation, keep it conversational, and reduce email traffic. You do not need to use email when you're using these tools effectively. We barely use email. So if you're using this well, you should see your email start to decrease dramatically. So that's a really key takeaway for this one. This tool works much more effectively than email. Excellent. I will carry on. So probably the second most used tool we have is Zoom, and we're all on Zoom today in this webinar. We use Zoom every week. We use it in many ways. We run our team meetings in Zoom, and of course the key feature of this is this face-to-face time. One thing with working remotely, you can start to feel quite isolated. So being able to see each other just adds a really nice layer of human connection. You can also see a lot more and pick up on a lot more when you can see people's faces than you can ever pick up when you're just chatting by text. So we really recommend that you do use Zoom as much as possible. So team meetings can be run in Zoom really effectively. We do them twice a week. The key rule is if one person is remote, then everybody is remote. And the reason for that is if people are sitting in a room together and there's one or two people remotely, it's very hard to, you're not having the same experience together. And the people in the room will quite naturally turn to each other and talk. They can pick up on facial cues quite easily in a room environment. That remotely it gets a bit harder if people are turning away from you. So that's probably the biggest takeaway from us for using Zoom and for any sort of meeting is if one is remote, all go remote, all jump on your laptops, sign in individually and as if you were in a different room. How else do we use Zoom? We're often on the go, so mute is, as you would have seen in the beginning, I had myself on mute, but then had to unmute, but it's a really good feature when you're in busy environments, if you happen to be out and about. I know that won't be happening so much now, but if it does. And the key thing for using Zoom is being able to share your screen, like we're doing today. So we can all be talking to the same information, seeing the same information together. It's a really powerful tool for that. What else? Just another key thing, the way we use it working remotely is for our team meetings, we'll often have a facilitator. It is a different environment than sitting in a room together. So a facilitator will often manage the conversation and sort of lead the session. If you want to try and make sure everyone arrives on time, then a little thing you could do is make the last person that joins the meeting to have to be the facilitator. So that might be a nice way to get everybody there early. We're thinking of trying that. We haven't done that yet, but we think that's a great idea. So we're going to give that one a go. What else have we got? Oh, and are there any questions before I just do the last tip?
There's a few questions coming in around, you know, our tools that we're using and other options that are available out there. You know, yeah. Why Zoom over Slack video? How about Skype for Business?
Yeah. Through all of our experiences, I mean, we've all come from different working environments. A few of us, you know, we've tried a few tools in the past, so it's really through trial and error that we've landed on the tools we have. There are other tools, and by all means experiment, but we have experimented and we have landed on these and they work really well. So if you want to save yourself some time, start with the ones we're using. And yeah, because otherwise you can get lost trying to find the perfect tool, and there is no perfect tool, but these ones from a remote first organisation that's used them for years, we can tell you these ones work really well.
I can also answer the Zoom video, the Slack video is not as powerful in the free account and there's not many features as the Zoom free account. So with the Zoom free account, you can actually do lots of things, share your screen, lots of other things. And the Slack video call, when it's free, then you don't have a lot of features. Of course, you have to pay to get those features. So Zoom free account is actually quite powerful, and the quality is really great.
There's one more question about using Zoom and of course IT security. Of course, that's something that's coming up with businesses.
Yeah. Yep.
So do we use it from the website? Do we download the app?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah, well, you can do either, but from a security point of view, I've worked with organisations that use Zoom. So, if you've got that in your organisation, then they will have to give you that sign off. That's one of the things that could be a bit of a barrier. I think in the times we're living in now, when people need to go remotely quickly, I would say that some of that security concern will be less of a factor than it will be about actually keeping, people connected and being able to do their work. So you have to check in with your organisation. That's part of the context you need to check in on. But I know organisations use it, so they would have gone through all the security checks. And a lot of these tools are so widely used around the world with really big companies that you can guarantee that security has been assessed pretty well.
And Nuria, just on that point as well, you asked if you need to download the app. You can if you want on your computer and phone, but you can use the desktop as well as a cloud tool. So it's not a big installation from an organization perspective. It's not an enterprise tool in that sense. So hopefully you can be quite agile and be able to use that when working remotely now.
Absolutely. So the last tip I've got here is just to acknowledge people when they're joining your meetings, just to make sure that people feel like they've been seen, they are part of the conversation that's going on or the meeting that's going on, and it really does make a difference. So we've learned that through experience as well. Any other questions before I move on?
Richard did make a really good point. Thank you, Richard. Richard Hammer, who is also facilitating one of our webinars. When on Zoom, allocate a facilitator, but also a person to take notes so that the conversation is also made visual for everyone who's not co-located. That's a great tip.
Great. And I think we might have pointed it out, but just in case we didn't, the ability to record is also there so that you can say that and people that weren't there can watch it later. Great. Well, I will move on for the sake of time. So we've talked about keeping connected, really, really important. But another important thing to working remotely is how you visualize and track your work. So if you can excuse me, I'm just going to get rid of that. So we use a tool called Trello to do that. It's a really simple tool, so it's really easy to get up and running with it. So we definitely recommend, if you haven't got anything like this already, that Trello is a good place to track your work. Some of the features including, that you can assign it to people so people know who's doing what, who's responsible for what, and you can also track how the work is moving. We're going to dive more into how we're using this tool to achieve our business outcomes tomorrow in Kaio's webinar, so do stay tuned for that one. One of the key factors for a lot of the tools we use is real-time collaboration. So everyone can be in this board at the same time, and we can all be adding and adding to the work at the same time. We also, with Zoom, while we're on our Zoom calls, we're often looking at our Trello boards. So we're sharing our screen and we're able to look at the work in Trello. It's really simple, super flexible. And I'm actually going to jump in and just quickly show you one of the boards that we use, just so you can get a bit of a feel for it. So this is a board that we have used, and Trello uses what they call lists. So you might call them columns, and you can set up multiple lists. So we've got a whole bunch here that you can see. Very easy to actually add them. You can just click here and add a list anytime you want. Within all the lists, you can see we have cards. So cards represent the actual work that sits in each list. So it's very easy to add a card. You just click on there, add a test card here. And then when you've added the card, you just click on it, and you can then put in all the information around that work. So you can add a description here. You can also add things like checklists. So if you need to add, tasks for people to do, or just things to remember, you can add multiple tasks. It has due dates, which is a really handy function. That's nice and simple. You can also assign people to the work, as I mentioned earlier. So it's very simple to do that as well. I'm going to assign something to Kaio and maybe Thea. So we've got multiple people that we can assign the work to. And labels, which I just, you can see here is how we've used our labels. So what we've done is we've grouped our work around our strategic drivers. So that's how we group our work. And then as we add the things we want to achieve, which is our objectives, or the work itself, it's all labelled so that it's connecting back to our strategic drivers. So labels can be used differently, but this is how we use labels. And tomorrow, Kyle will sort of talk to you a bit more about how we're using these tools. What else can I tell you about Trello? It's just a really great transparent way of using, of seeing your work. Multiple boards. So we've got a whole bunch of boards that we've created. So you can have boards for different things. And tomorrow, once again, Kyle will share a bit more about how we're using those. Okay, I think that's probably a very quick overview of Trello, but you can see it's very quick, easy and simple to use. I'll just see if I might have jumped ahead there. Any questions before I just jump into the tips?
Not at the moment, and we do just have a few minutes left. So if people can hang around for a few extra minutes, we'd love you to. But we do know that people need to do other things at 9:30. So as we said, this recording will be available for anything that you miss if you do have to go.
Thanks, Martine. So key here, keep them simple. It's easy to overcomplicate some of the tools you use. Just start simply and then just change your boards and add new boards when you need to. Talk to your team about how you want to use them and go from there. So how we also visualize and track work is through a really cool tool called Miro. We have been using this more recently than some of our other tools. It's essentially a virtual whiteboard. It's extremely feature rich. You can use it for all types of visualizations. Pretty much anything you can draw or write on a board, you can use Miro for in a digital environment. If you use sticky notes at the moment in your offices, then Miro is an awesome way to replicate that. It has sticky notes in there. It's a very cool feature. And because it's so feature rich, they give you lots of templates. And I'm actually going to, once again, I'm going to dive in and show you because it's a lot easier than just looking at a static image. Can we all see that board? Just to make sure I'm not talking to an empty space. Great. So as you can see, it's a big board. There is a lot of room to move, so you can add a lot to this. And just an example of how you can use it. This is almost like a workshop setup. So we've got a 90-day wall. You might be wanting to run a session with your team, running a workshop. So you can simply zoom in. There's zoom in controls in the bottom right. Or you can use some desktop shortcuts, which I tend to do a lot of. And you know, it's really interactive. So I can type something in here. I can then click and drag. So it's a really interactive tool. Post-it notes over here. You can have them set up already if you're running a workshop and you want people to be able to drag them in quite simply, or you can add them from the menu bar on the left here. Post-it notes are quite fun. You can have lots of colours. Just double click to type on what it is. You know, have some fun. You can also change the shape. So if you just wanted something slightly bigger, you can have a different size Post-it note. So it's a really cool feature. So you can imagine that, you know, you can really replicate what you would normally do in an office quite simply here in Miro. And we can all be in there at the same time. So our whole team can be in there. We can see everybody moving around. You can add little comments. So if I've been in before somebody else has been in, I can add a little comment and we can talk about it later. Some of the other things, you can add images. This is just an image of one of our Trello boards. This is another example of a story map somebody's used it for, and mind mapping. So if you want to do some brainstorming, you can come in here and do that with your team. And the bottom map at the bottom right there is just to help you navigate around the board because it's so big. And you can have multiple boards as well. We're still on the free version, so there's some limitations of boards, but if you want to pay for the tool, then you can get access to more boards and more people. And really the key takeaway here is experiment. There's lots you can do in Miro, so just get in there and experiment. And just to wrap up, I know time is gone over a little bit. You need somewhere to store and collaborate on documentation, really important when working remotely. We use Google Drive. In Google Drive, you can create Google documents. So they have Google Docs, which is like Word, Microsoft Word. They have Slides, which is like Microsoft PowerPoint. They have Sheets, which is like Excel. So you can create documents in there and then they get stored and you can collaborate on them. Or if you're already using Microsoft and you've got all those Word docs and PowerPoints, you can upload them to Drive. They will store up there and you can still collaborate on them. So it'll work either way. And once again, you can all be in there in that image. 3 people are in there at the same time editing a document, or there's chat comments you can leave for people if you're not all in there together, and you can access it from anywhere, which like most of our tools, or all of our tools actually, you can access from any device anywhere. And our little tips are we tend to share the links in in Slack when we're talking to each other, rather than sharing from Google Drive, because that'll create an email. You can do it if you want, but we prefer not to. And otherwise, everyone can jump into Drive and find documents that they're working on. And that is a wrap up of all the tools that we wanted to share with you today and how we work remotely. I did mention alternatives. I'm just very quickly, there are a bunch of alternatives. Microsoft, if you're already using that in your organization, will do a lot of those things to keep you connected and visualize your work and help you do your documentation. But if not, then we really recommend that you use these tools because they're tried and true. And finally, just to wrap up completely from my part, is a few things, key things to remember. I'm not going to read them all out to you because I think I've touched on them all, but when we share this, obviously we thought it'd be nice for you to have those as those little reminders, key things to remember. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Lisa. So let's have a look at what we've got on tomorrow. Tomorrow we have Kaio. If you wouldn't mind clicking over for me, please, Lisa. Tomorrow we have Kaio, who will be talking about keeping the work moving. So really that piece on how we collaborate and get the work done whilst we're working remotely. If we have a look at our next slide, just a bit more information on our bonus webinar on Monday. So Cassandra from Thrive Global will talk to us about maintaining wellbeing during this challenging time. You don't need to do anything extra to join. We'll extend the webinar on Monday. So hang around if you would like to hear Cassandra talk about her 3 top tips. Just a follow on from today, once you exit the webinar, you'll get a short 2-question poll to give us some feedback on how we went today. So we'd really love you to fill that out. And if we click one more time, here's our contact details. So please reach out. If you have any questions, we're really happy to answer them for you. So please reach out if you wanted any more help. We're more than happy to give it to you. So we're all in this together and let's get through it together. And thank you very much for coming along today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, team.